Hello. If you're feeling extra overwhelmed because, well, it's the season of overwhelm, isn't it? So much work to do before the end of the year, so many other people to think about. Just seasonal overwhelm. Here we go. If that's how you're feeling and it's just all a bit much, this video's for you. This is about how to create space for you. Now you might be thinking, oh, come on, Heidi, or whoever you are, if you don't know who I am. Hello, I'm Heidi, the gentle rebel coach, somebody who's been through the ringer with overwhelm, into exhaustion, and imploded my life through burning out, and then found a different way, my way of having what I want, which is a full life. I don't want to drop any of my dreams just because overwhelm squished me once upon a time. No, I want it all, just like you. So if you want it all, but you're desperately thinking, oh my goodness, I wish I could have some space, this video's for you. I really want to talk about space at the time of year when it feels the most stupid time to be thinking about space. So you might be thinking, well, this will pass, and then in the new year I'll make a resolution to create more space for myself. I'll start looking after myself better. I'll put some gaps in my schedule. I'll book massages or whatever it is, which is great, except for the fact that we all know New Year's resolutions tend to be a bit of a disaster, and also a disastrous pressure that tend to add to our overwhelm, add to our feelings of inadequacy, another thing to fail at. So instead, I'm going to invite you to gently rebel against the normal way of self-improvement. So the normal way is to think there's something wrong and then try and make things better. If only I was better at self-care, if only I was better at claiming space for myself, if only I could clear the noise in my head so I could think straight, then I could prioritise and everything would magically work out all right. I'm going to invite you to just drop all that nonsense for a bit, take the pressure off yourself and look at space differently. So the reason that you're longing for space is because it feels like there isn't enough space for you. That sounds obvious, but what does that feel like to you? Because what it feels like to you matters very, very much. So to me, the feeling of not having space for myself is feeling squished. Like there's literally not enough space for me, even though there could be, like now, there's physical space around me. But when I feel like there's not enough space, I feel literally compressed. Like there's too much weight on my shoulders, suggesting I'm carrying loads that aren't meant for me. Not because I'm not tough enough, but because I don't really want to be carrying other people's baggage, other people's stuff. I don't really want to be filling my head and my days with concern for other people. But I still want to be the big-hearted, loving, empathetic person that I am. And that for me is one of the dilemmas, right? How can we be big-hearted and generous and highly driven and highly conscientious without completely crushing ourselves by taking on too much, by trying to do too much and be too much for other people? It's a real dilemma, right? Are you with me? So this is what I do, or what I learned to do. I had to stop and pause and notice what it felt like for me. So I'd invite you to do that for yourself. What does it feel like for you when you haven't got enough space? And what is the impact? Because for me, if I don't get enough space for myself, I'm not that much fun to be around. I mean, I can wing it. I can, at work, I can be incredibly professional. And then at home, what happens? The people you love the most get the worst of you, right? Because you need to withdraw and you need to regroup. Like it's not that space for yourself is an indulgence. It's not a luxury. For you to function at a really high level, to have the full life you want, to be the loving, fun, warm person you are and kick ass at work and feel well, you need space for yourself. It's a requirement. It's not an indulgence. Yeah, really. The problem is how do we make that happen? Because it feels like another thing to do. If I could squeeze some space from my busy schedule, then I'd have some space. But what happens if you do that? First of all, it costs because you have to bargain. It feels like you have to bargain with everybody else or something. You have to make some sort of, if you do this, I can take this space. The biggest bargain, I think, though, is the bargaining we do with ourselves. How can I justify taking this space for myself? And then along with that comes high expectations of how we use that hard-won space in the schedule. And when it comes, what happens is, there's this brief moment, maybe you've scheduled an hour for yourself, and instead of being able to take up that space and really be in it and enjoy it, and it to be the nourishing, uplifting thing it's supposed to be, all of the shoulds, woulds and oughts and couldas all just thought bomb you. And then there's all this guilt. And then it's like, well, that didn't work. So that I worked so hard to create that space and it didn't really work. Or we do things like book in massages, and that works, but it doesn't solve the essential problem. And the essential problem is that the overlying feeling is that we've created a life that doesn't work for us. But there are, on the surface and logically to our mind, we should be happy, we ought to be happy, because we have so much of what we wanted. The well-paid, meaningful work, the dream house, the family. We have a lot of what we wanted, so we ought to be happy. So what's wrong? Well, there isn't any space for us. And it's a horrible, horrible feeling. But this I know to be true. We cannot control the universe in order to feel better. It just doesn't work. I mean, you can try and rearrange, like play chess with all of the factors of your life, but it's really hard work. It's like attempting to schedule the feeling of space. It's hard work because it's mind-based. It's like, if I could logically finish these projects, and if this could happen and that could happen, and if I finish this, like when I move house, when I change job, when this difficult person leaves work, when this project's finished, when this happens, when this, then that, then I'll feel like there's space for me, then I'll feel happier. But that's really hard work. I would argue instead a radically different way of looking at this longing for the feeling of space for ourselves. I think it's an inside job. I think when we create space internally, everything changes. Because actually it's not what we're doing, it's how we're doing it. It doesn't really matter what you achieve if it's cost you your health. But what if you could work hard and have great holidays and have great relationships and feel really well and have all the things and do all the things and love it, just absolutely love it, do it with joy and with ease, so that you have the right amount of challenge and ease, which is that flow state. So you're flowing through your life. It just feels like it was made for you. It feels like whatever happens, you can cope, you'll find a way, because you have this inner confidence, you can connect to your inner ease. You know what's right for you, you know what's good for you, you know that it's important, that it's a requirement to look after yourself properly, that space for you is just necessary. And therefore it's not something you have to bargain with or fight your schedule or other people for. It just is. This is how I am. I take up the space in my life because my life is for me. It's just a different way of being. And the thing I love about this approach is you don't have to take a big stand. You don't have to talk about it. You don't have to discuss it. You can just shift internally. So if you want to know how, this is what I mean. So it starts with the acknowledgement of feeling squished, of feeling like there's no space for you, just acknowledging it, noticing it, and then dropping the judgment around that, the stories around that, the would have, if I could, should, blah. Just notice how you feel. Notice what it feels like to both have space and not have space. So then you can just become this little observer detective and look at your life and notice when you do feel like there's space for you, and then notice when you feel really squished and like there's just not space for me, and notice the impact of both of them. If you just do this as you move through this week, you'll suddenly see things you couldn't see before. And when you start to understand how important it is to have the feeling that there is space in your life to be yourself, to feel at ease, to feel at home in your life, once you start to notice that, it comes to be a priority, and then it just becomes easier. But it's really important to do this neutrally. So I invite you to just look at your feelings of space and your feelings of not having enough space, and then drop the judgment about it. So to notice neutrally, to gather information, and not to try and change anything, not to start with, just to notice. And then see how you feel after doing this for a week. And then I'm going to do another video which will be to help you create the feeling of space from the inside out. Check that one out next. Thank you for being here. If you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, because it would be really lovely if you did that. I'd be really grateful, and it'd be nice to have you sticking around. Thank you. Bye.